Hi guys, I'm Kat from Oh Hi DIY, and today's video is a little bit different from what I normally post. It's very personal, but it's Baby Loss Awareness Week and I really wanted to put a post up to raise awareness of baby loss, share a little bit about our experience. I do always refer to it as our experience, and I'm not being weird and sort of referring to myself as multiple people. It's very much an experience I went through with my husband. I couldn't have got through it without him, and it was very much, it's interchangeable. No, he's it isn't just my experience, it's our experience. He was such a huge part and support of what we went through, and it was his baby as well. That I always say we and our, so that's probably what I'm going to say throughout the whole video. So I have written a blog post about this in the past, which I'll include a link to below. I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of what happened, but I'll give you an overview, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about the nature of our situation and how I think it's important to raise awareness and tolerance of the situation that we found ourselves in and that other people find themselves in that isn't quite in the clear-cut box of stillbirth or miscarriage. So we were pregnant with a little boy at the end of 2016, and on the 22nd of December we went to our 20-week scan. We hadn't bought anything up until this point. I'm a natural worrier, so I was just waiting for that scan before we could really get started and really get excited about having our baby. So the 20-week scan is called the anomaly scan. They check all the physiology of the baby, take lots of measurements and check that overall everything is growing as expected. Unfortunately, our baby wasn't growing as expected. I didn't think I'd get upset doing this, and I don't want to cry on YouTube. So after a lot of sighing from the sonographer, she told us that something didn't look right, and she went to get someone else. I don't actually remember the exact words she used about that something was wrong. Someone else came in. So our baby's bones hadn't grown properly, so in his arms and legs his bones were bowed like telephone receivers, and they were very short. So his limbs were there, but the bones weren't as long as his limbs. And also his rib cage was very small. So a baby's rib cage is supposed to be sort of barrel shaped, but ours was more like an upside down cork. What happened then was they said, it looks very serious. It looked like a skeletal dysplasia. When you have an abnormal scan, you have to go for a fetal medicine scan. So we had to go to a different hospital the next day to have a scan. Luckily they fit us in first thing in the morning because it was Christmas. We might have had to wait for 2 weeks, and I can't actually imagine what that would have been like, knowing that there was something seriously wrong with the baby. So luckily we got to go the next day. We went for the scan, and they confirmed that our baby wasn't going to survive. His rib cage was so small that his lungs couldn't develop properly, so he wouldn't be able to breathe, and we were advised to have a termination. So I hate the word termination because also it's so callous. It also sounds a bit like you're just closing a program on your computer or ending a phone call. It doesn't include the emotion of what you're actually doing. Now I know that terminations are very controversial. I really don't want any hate on this because we didn't really have a choice. I think in some ways I count myself lucky that we really had no choice. What we actually found out sort of later on, we had a post-mortem and genetic tests. Our baby had a condition called Thanatophoric Dysplasia. The name Thanatophoric comes from a Greek word, thanatos, that means death bringing. Our baby had no hope of survival. It wasn't a choice that we made for his, you know, for his life, or the quality of his life. He just wasn't going to have a life. So he would have either passed away before the end of the pregnancy, or he would have passed away straight away when he was born, because he wouldn't have been able to draw a breath. So the decision that we made was to end the pregnancy there. I couldn't imagine having to carry him to term knowing that he wouldn't survive. I just think that would be unbearable. And so we wanted to, you know, sort of get it over with. So like I say, it was Christmas. I took you take tablets before you go to hospital, so I took the first tablet on Christmas Eve. We had Christmas Day with our family, and then on Boxing Day we went into hospital. Everyone said to us, it's a lot quicker than giving birth, it's a lot less painful, you do have to go through the procedure of giving birth to the baby, it's not sort of a surgical thing. And unfortunately I had a really bad reaction to the drugs. I was being sick, I had a really high temperature, I was in lots of pain. I was in labour for 16 hours. It was pretty brutal. It's that almost, in some ways, I'm glad about it, and to be honest, in a lot of ways I'm glad about that. I'm glad it wasn't easy, I'm glad it wasn't a nice experience, I'm glad it wasn't, I just went in and came out and it didn't feel like anything. I feel like, you know, for me it was almost cathartic, because I should suffer for doing that. I should, you know, it should be painful and it should be horrible, and I'm glad that it hurt and that it was awful. It was really horrible for my husband to sit there sort of and watch me go through that, and you know, for him I think it was a lot more traumatic, because he was sort of, it wasn't him going through it and he could only sit and watch without being able to do anything, which I think is really brutal. I think for partners it's very hard. I think, you know, a lot of the attention is given to the women, but you know, the dads have lost their baby as well. So it was really horrible, and I think one of the things that I want to talk about is that making that decision to end a pregnancy when you want a baby so much is just unbelievable. It's very hard to describe, and that's not great for a YouTube video. It leaves a mark on you, and you know, as I said, in our situation, our baby wasn't going to survive, but for anyone that makes that decision about the quality of life that their baby's going to have, you know, no one makes that decision lightly. It's not a decision, when you love something so much, it's not a decision that you can just be like, oh well, that one's not good enough, so we're not having it. That isn't what it is at all. And anyone that thinks that, I think, really needs to change their opinion, because it's hard. It is hard, and you feel guilty and horrible, and it's not something that you ever get over. I feel guilty. I still, you know, worry what the baby must think of me. I know the baby isn't alive, but you know, if he's spirits anywhere, what you know, does he hate me? What he thinks about it? And also, one of the things that I do struggle with, and obviously, you know, Baby Loss Awareness Week, I struggle with saying that I lost a baby. It is how I do describe it. But when I say it, I almost feel like I'm telling a lie, because I didn't lose the baby. I wasn't passive in the situation. I didn't, you know, have a miscarriage, or I didn't, you know, there wasn't a stillbirth. I made the decision. Now, I didn't make the decision for him to have a condition, but I made the decision for him, for at that moment, to, you know, sort of stop him from suffering. And it's hard then to feel part of a community that doesn't talk about this. I think there is a taboo around baby loss in general, but I think there is, there's a real taboo around having to make a decision whether to continue with the pregnancy or not if there's something fundamentally wrong with your child. And I really want to raise awareness of that. It is a loss. And there's a lot of guilt around baby loss anyway. You blame yourself. I blame myself for his condition, even though there's nothing I can do. It's a one-off sort of genetic thing. But that decision to not carry on stays with you forever. And it does not make you feel good. Anyone that has made this decision, you give a piece of yourself away. And it's hard. Even though you've done the right thing. I know I did the right thing. When the post-mortem came through, it said that there were already indentations on his lungs from his ribs. So already he was suffering, and I didn't. At the time we made the decision, I didn't know that. I thought that it would come later. I thought that he wasn't already suffering, but he was. And if you have made this decision, you've done it from the best possible place. But it's not something that can be taken lightly. It's not something that can just be dismissed. I found it very difficult after we lost the baby. We had to wait for the post-mortem, which was delayed because it was Christmas and staff shortages, which I think is, to be honest, unacceptable. We didn't know if we could have children because we didn't know if it was a genetic thing for us or if it was just a one-off, and we had to wait to find that out. Trying again was awful because I really wanted to be pregnant by his due date. We actually had a chemical pregnancy just before where I got a positive pregnancy test and then it faded away, and that was awful. I ended up going for counselling because I was just in an absolute mess after. I couldn't really deal with what had happened and my own feelings about it. And I think that was one of the best things that I did because that really helped me to cope. And actually on the day of my last counselling session, I'd taken a pregnancy test in the morning to sort of prove to myself that when I wasn't pregnant this time, that was okay, and I could deal with it and I'd be fine carrying on not being pregnant because I was all right now. And that was the day that I got a positive and I was pregnant with Theo, which actually brought with it a whole host of other anxieties, which again I've talked about in another blog post, about how difficult it was to be pregnant after losing a baby. So now we're nearly 2 years on. Obviously Theo's here, he's 6 months old, he's brilliant. And again, I have a lot of mixed emotions about what's happened. I can honestly say that I wouldn't change anything, which I do feel really guilty about saying that, but Theo is here and he's so amazing that I can't wish for things to be different, because if they were I wouldn't have him. But that doesn't sit well either. I still feel incredibly guilty. We've still got Adam's ashes in the kitchen, in a cupboard, because I can't decide what I want to do with them. So there they are. We've got his little hand and footprints. I really wish that I'd had a picture taken of him, because since at the time that horrified me, and since coming out of hospital I've seen that people do it really nicely. They're quite artistic, and it's a memory to have, and something tangible to look at. My parents never saw him, Lee's parents never saw him, it was only me and Lee that saw him, and I can't share that with anybody. So I really wish that I'd done that. But we do have his handprints. it's hard and it stays with you, and every time someone says about Theo, is this your first, you want to say no, but you can't say that because it makes, you know, you don't want to tell your life story to everyone, she says, making a video for the internet, but you don't want to make other people feel bad, you don't need to sort of trot it out, but also again you feel like you're lying, you think, you know, and you feel bad for sort of denying his existence. It's hard. It's a hard thing to live with. You know, I've got 2 children, but unfortunately one of them was never with us. But, you know, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to wrap this up. You know, Tommy's is a charity who do a lot of work on baby loss awareness. They are, you know, this is Baby Loss Awareness Week until the 15th. On the 15th they are doing the Wave of Light campaign, which is lighting a candle to raise awareness about baby loss for all the babies that have died. I will be taking part in that, and I hope that anyone watching this will as well. It's such an important topic. We all need to support each other, and I really hope that there is a little bit more awareness for people who have made a decision to have termination, because that loss isn't less than anybody else's, and whilst there are lots of different opinions around that, I really don't think that it's something that people should be made to feel ashamed of, because you put enough of that on yourself without it coming from somewhere external. So that's it, that's my story. I hope that this video has helped or has informed. It is very personal to me. Like I say, please, I really don't need any negativity. I hope that I'm not going to get any. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with normal service on DIY, parenting, clothes shopping sort of stuff. Bye.